Bangladesh, 1971. War, bloodshed, a fight for freedom. Finally, victory. Bangladesh is born. But freedom came at a cost. Many were left disadvantaged. So, a system was put in place. Job quotas, meant to uplift the marginalized, like the families of freedom fighters. Fast forward to the 21st century. The system, once a symbol of hope, is now debated. Some argue it's outdated. It breeds inequality, they say. Others defend it fiercely. It's about justice, they argue, honoring the sacrifices of the past. The quota system, a legacy of the war, became a point of contention. It reserved a percentage of government jobs for certain groups. Supporters saw it as necessary for social justice. Critics called it discriminatory and inefficient. This tension simmered for years, waiting for a spark. For decades, the quota system remained largely untouched. A sensitive topic, deeply intertwined with the nation's identity. But change was in the air, a growing sentiment that the system needed a re-evaluation. May 2024, the Bangladesh Supreme Court delivers a verdict. It upholds a previous ruling. The ruling? Reduce quota reservations in government jobs from 56% to 10%. Supporters of the quota system are outraged. The court's decision was a bombshell. It was like someone poured gasoline on a smoldering fire. The students, already burdened by a tough job market, saw their opportunities shrinking even further. Students already grappling with unemployment felt betrayed. The court's decision was seen as a direct attack on their future prospects. Social media became a breeding ground for anger and frustration. This wasn't just about numbers. It was about a promise made to those who sacrificed for the nation, a promise they felt was being broken. July 2024. Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, erupts. Students flood the streets. Their demand? Reinstate the previous quota system. They argue that reducing quotas will limit their opportunities and those of marginalized communities. The protests were not just about the quotas themselves, though. They were about a system perceived as rigged against the ordinary Bangladeshi, a system where connections and political affiliations mattered more than merit. The protests spread like wildfire. From Dhaka, they engulfed other cities. Universities became hotbeds of dissent. Students boycotted classes, organized rallies, and demanded dialogue with the government. These students were tech-savvy, media literate, and organized. They used social media effectively to amplify their message and mobilize support. The world watched as the hashtag #Bangladesh protests trended globally. Section 4. The government's response, crackdown, and concessions. Initially, the government seemed caught off guard. Then came the crackdown. Police used tear gas, rubber bullets, and water cannons. Arrests were made. The internet was throttled, an attempt to disrupt communication. The government's heavy-handed response only fueled the protests. International human rights groups condemned the excessive use of force. The situation was quickly spiraling out of control. But the students were relentless. They refused to back down. They organized medical camps for the injured, provided legal aid to those arrested, and continued their demonstrations. Under mounting pressure, the government offered concessions. They announced a new quota system. It aimed to address some concerns, but many students felt it was not enough. The protests continued. Section 5. Beyond the quota, deeper societal issues. The protests in Bangladesh are about more than just quotas. They expose deeper societal issues. Rampant youth unemployment is a major concern. The education system is struggling to keep up with the demands of a changing job market. Favoritism and corruption are endemic. Many young people feel that success in life depends more on who you know than what you know. This breeds a sense of hopelessness and resentment. The protests resonated with a population grappling with these issues. It wasn't just about the quotas, it was about a system perceived as unfair and rigged against the average citizen. The protests have become a lightning rod for the frustrations of a generation that feels unheard, unrepresented, and left behind. Section 6. An uncertain future. The struggle continues. As of today, the situation in Bangladesh remains tense. The protests have subsided, but the underlying issues remain unresolved. The government has promised reforms, but skepticism runs deep. Will the government address the root causes of the unrest, or will they resort to suppressing dissent? The future of Bangladesh hangs in the balance. One thing is clear: the youth of Bangladesh have found their voice. They are no longer content to be passive observers. They are demanding change, and they are willing to fight for it. The world is watching.